Hello, friends. Welcome back to another week at Kids Church. My name is Miss Christie, and I'm so glad that you could join us today. Before we continue with our series in Colossians, let us start by singing a song together. Paul begins his letter to the people in Colossians by thanking God. He thanks God for everything that He has given them in His Son Jesus. And at the end of the letter, Paul says, pray, and keep on praying. Keep talking to God and never stop saying thank you to God. Followers of Jesus pray. They talk to God and they never stop praying, never stop talking to God. In fact, Jesus told a story to teach us to never stop praying, never stop talking to God. Jesus' story goes a little bit like this. There once was a beaver named Barney who lived with his wife Beatrice on a pond at the edge of the forest. Their beautiful home was made out of fine logs which Barney had selected himself, diligently chewed to fit and carefully set into place. Beatrice had taken charge of inside of the house, pasting up wallpaper in the kitchen, painting the rooms pleasant shades, and hanging curtains. Together, Mr. and Mrs. Beaver had built a warm, cozy home in which to live. It came about one day that tragedy struck. Barney fell off the roof. A doctor was summoned, but the poor beaver didn't live through the night. The next day, animals from across the land gathered at the beaver home. Sir Humphrey, the wealthy business bear, addressed the crowd with a few words about Mr. Beaver. Those who knew Barney, the bear growled, loved Barney, a kinder, more faithful animal you couldn't hope to meet. We will all miss him dearly. When her friends and family had returned to their own homes, Beatrice sat inside her house and cried for the whole week straight. She was so sad and lonely that she cried until she could cry no longer, and then she cried some more. One day, after her sniffles had finally passed, there came a knock at the door. After checking her face and fur in the hall mirror, Beatrice opened the door to find two animals outside. After we get rid of this old house, a weasel was saying to a large wolf in a top hat, your hotel will fit neatly here next to the pond. I can see it now, the Wolf's Den Hotel. Beatrice cleared her throat to gain their attention. Is there something I can help you with? Good day, madam, the weasel said with a smile. This will explain everything, and he handed her a sheet of paper. The note said, your home is now the property of the J.B. Wolf Company. You and all your possessions must be off the premises by tomorrow, or else. What? Beatrice was shocked. You can't do this. This is my home. Was your home, the weasel said, shuffling through a file of papers. Says right here that after your husband died, the title deed was transferred to our company. I insist on speaking with your superior, Beatrice demanded. Let me introduce myself, the wolf smiled, stepping forward. Mr. J.B. Wolf, robber baron extraordinaire. My good Mrs. Beaver, I am afraid that your house is now my property. We'll see about that, Beatrice said, trying to sound brave. But after closing the door, she felt like crying. Sir Humphrey, she suddenly thought, if anyone can help me, he can. Beatrice scurried off through the forest to Sir Humphrey's mansion. But when she arrived, She was disappointed to find he was not at home. She was about to give up when Reginald, Sir Humphrey's butler, suggested that she see Judge Kensington. The butler explained that the judge was a wise elk who settled various arguments between woodland creatures. Beatrice thanked Reginald and set out to find the judge. When she arrived at the courthouse, Beatrice introduced herself to the receptionist. "My name is Mrs. Beatrice Beaver, and I must see Judge Kensington," she told the young crow. "Do you have an appointment?" the bird cawed sleepily. "No, but it is a matter of some urgency," Beatrice explained. The crow leafed lazily through a calendar on her desk. "How's 2 weeks from next Thursday sound?" "That's much too late," Beatrice objected. The crow ignored this and began primping her feathers. Beatrice didn't know what to do, but she knew that she needed to see the judge. When the crow wasn't looking, Beatrice slipped out of the courthouse and went around to the back. There she found a service entrance used by the maids and cooks. She tiptoed through it and found herself in a long hallway with many doors. Walking quietly down the hall, she eventually came to a door which had a plaque on it. The plaque read, "Behind this door sits a fair judge, committed to what is right and just." Beatrice tapped on the door lightly. When no one answered, she gave it a sharp tap. Then she spotted a window above the door. "If only I had a ladder," she thought. But there was nothing in the hall except for a serving cart filled with dirty dishes. Removing the dishes from the cart, she wheeled it in front of the door. Climbing up onto it, she steadied herself with her tail and strained to look through the high window. What she saw was a grey-haired elk wearing a pair of round spectacles. Squinting to get a better look, she noticed that his eyes were closed. The judge was sleeping. Suddenly, the cart began to roll, and Beatrice lost her balance. Gripping the edge of the windowsill, she hung on with all her might. "Help!" she screamed. This startled the judge, who jumped out of his chair and came running out of his office at a gallop, only to have Beatrice fall into his arms as he passed through the doorway. "What? Who are you?" the surprised elk asked as he put her down. By this time, the crow from the entryway had arrived at the scene, along with a collection of servants and cooks. "My name is Mrs. Beatrice Beaver, and I have an urgent request, Your Honor," she blurted out. "Make an appointment, like everybody else," the judge grumbled. "Now, where was I?" he asked himself as he returned to his office and slammed the door. Sitting on the steps of the courthouse, Beatrice wondered what to do. She was about to head for home when she heard a door close behind her. Turning around, she saw the judge leaving the courthouse. Beatrice followed him down the path. "Judge Kensington, I must see you," she pleaded. "Oh, not you again." The elk shook his head. "It's urgent. I must talk with you today." "I'm going home," he snorted. "I suggest you do the same." And he walked away at a brisk pace. Beatrice had to run just to keep the elk in sight. When the judge reached his home, he hurried inside, leaving Beatrice standing in the street. He gave a sigh of relief, thinking he was rid of the pesky beaver. But he was mistaken. First, there was a knock at the door. The judge didn't answer. Then there was a tapping at the window, so the judge drew the curtains. Next, a rock with a note attached to it came bouncing down the chimney, but he refused to read it. Then he heard a noise outside. "Judge Kensington!" Beatrice hollered at the top of her voice. "Please hear my request!" Beatrice was making such a racket that the judge threw open the door. "Stop it!" the judge begged. "I'll do anything you ask, Mrs. Beaver. I'll see to it that your request is granted. If you only will promise to leave me alone." Beatrice nodded her head in agreement and then explained her problem to the grumpy elk. When she finished, she showed him the note she'd been given by the weasel and the wolf. "Here," the elk said, scribbling a message on the bottom of the notice. "This will take care of the problem. Now I insist that you leave me alone." And he trotted back inside and slammed the door. By the time Beatrice reached her home, it was very late, and she was quite tired, so she went directly to bed. But early the next morning, she heard a knock at the door. Hopping up, she checked her face and fur in the hall mirror and answered the door. It was the weasel and the wolf. "You've got an hour to gather your things and get out," the weasel said, pointing to a crew of animals waiting outside to demolish her home. "As soon as Mr. Wolf gives them the signal." Well, perhaps Mr. Wolf should read this. Beatrice smiled, handing him the notice. The weasel's jaw dropped as he read. "This notice is deemed illegal. The J.B. Wolf Company has no right to claim the home of Mrs. Beaver. By order of Judge Kensington, you're hereby required to leave her alone." With his tail driven between his legs, the weasel turned and gave the notice to his boss. The wolf read it quickly and then bared his fangs. "I should have known not to trust a weasel with a wolf's job," the wolf growled. "You have upset me for the last time." Just as the wolf lunged, the weasel bolted for the road, and the wolf took up chase, snapping at his heels. "Won't you stay for breakfast?" Beatrice called after them as a peaceful smile spread across her face. But they were already too far away to hear. This story is very similar to the one Jesus told in the Gospel of Luke. There is a widow, a woman who lost her husband, and she is in trouble and asks the judge for help. The poor woman asked for help again and again and again and again and again. And eventually the bad judge answers her. If a bad judge eventually puts things right, how much more will a good judge? A good judge like our Father in heaven. God is our good and generous Father in heaven. He has given us everything in Jesus, and he longs for us, his children, to come to him and ask. So friends, pray, talk to God, and never stop talking to him. Never stop praying, because we have a good God who loves to give generously to those who ask. Let's pray. Dear God, thank you so much that you are a good and generous God who has given us everything in your Son Jesus. Please help us to pray, to talk to you, and never stop praying, never stop talking to you. Please help us to tell others the good news about your Son Jesus. Amen. So that brings us to the end of today's video for Kids Church. As always, will include questions in the description bar box below for you to think through and to chat with your family about in the coming week. Now, I wanted to let you know for the next 3 Sundays, so that's July the 5th, July the 12th, and July the 19th, there will be no new RPC Kids Church video. I encourage you to join Mum and Dad in watching our regular RPC church service. Over the next few weeks, Kevin will be teaching us from the book of Habakkuk. Or I strongly encourage you to go check out the Quizworks YouTube channel. They have created a number of videos over the last few months for kids at home during COVID. Even though you won't be seeing me for the next few weeks, I do encourage you to keep reading your Bible to find out more about God's Son Jesus and to keep talking to God. Bye for now, and I look forward to seeing you guys again soon.